Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's WorkSafe Tasmania Month webinar, Using Software Technology and Mobile Apps for WHS Management. I'm Stephanie from WorkSafe Tasmania and also the coordinator of WorkSafe Tasmania Month. I'll also be your moderator for this morning's webinar. Before we do get started though, I'd appreciate you taking a few moments to read the following slide about information delivered during WorkSafe Month sessions. I'd now like to go over a few items so that you know how to participate in today's webinar. So we've taken a screenshot of an example of the attendee interface, and you should see something that looks like this on your computer screen in the upper right corner. You're most likely listening in using your computer's speaker system by default. However, if you prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You'll also have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during and at the end of today's webinar. We are recording presentations and will progressively be making them available on the WorkSafe Tasmania website after WorkSafe Tasmania month finishes on the 30th of October. Lastly, we do ask that you do take some time at the end of this webinar to complete a short survey that you will receive about today's presentation, and we certainly would appreciate you completing that survey and providing us with your feedback. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to this morning's presenter, Adrian Meneses, Business Development Officer from MyOsh Safety Management Software. Welcome, Adrian.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. And first of all, I'd like to thank WorkSafe Tasmania for inviting me to present here today. And I hope that the session today will be informative and helpful. I am happy to take questions throughout the session. If I have a trouble answering them, I may come back to you towards the end or at another stage. I've been developing or been involved in the implementation of software technology for the best part of 20-something years. Right through from implementation, analysis, training, support, and a variety of other areas. One of the most exciting parts, things that have occurred in the last few years, is the advent of mobile technology. What it's done is it's made safety management software a lot more accessible to the masses. Where previously it was really restricted to people that had access to computers. Nowadays we have a very, very large number of people that can access this sort of technology, even through into third world technologies. So I've been to third world technologies where people are actually actively using safety management software via their mobile devices with or without internet to be able to participate and be involved in mobile programs. Why do we want to do this? First of all, I'll just go through a relatively brief slide. There's a lot of reasons why you want to be going down the path of safety management software and mobile in particular. There's various legal and commercial legal requirements. Obviously there's compliance requirements. Legally you're required to manage hazards, investigate incidents, and so forth. There are commercial reasons. You are operating a lot more effectively and efficiently if you are operating in a safe way. We've had companies contact us before and say we've lost a contract, and the reason we've lost a contract is because we've been proven not to operate safely. So the one example that I had was where a company was doing some work. They're a contractor to a large mining company, and they had an accident. Now the induction training had in fact expired for the person who was involved in the accident by about a week. When the mining company did an investigation on that particular incident, they discovered that the training wasn't up to date, and the company's contract was actually terminated and they lost a great deal of business from it. Reputation's a big one. A lot of organisations who have major incidents will suffer, their brand will suffer, their reputation will suffer, and then again commercially they'll have issues. People often don't look at things like the downtime that occurs when incidents occur. There's insurance benefits from implementing systems. So one organisation that I was working with a year or two ago boasted that they'd actually saved themselves something like $1.4 million over a year by putting in effective systems that help them get some real benefits, reduce their frequency rates, reduce their injuries. They then went to the insurance company to basically say, well, based on the fact that we've got a lower risk profile, we shouldn't be paying the same premiums that we had when we were injuring people and having many incidents. I've talked about compliance and productivity, but culture is a big one, particularly, and I touched on it before to some degree, with mobile, particularly with mobile devices. It allows people to be involved, and it doesn't become just we want you to work in a safe way. It's basically giving people the tools to be able to work in a safe way and to be involved in the safety process. So how does it improve safety culture? First of all, it improves participation. The example that I give is I was in Mongolia a couple of years ago, and what I noticed that everybody had mobile phones that were smartphones. They could actually be involved and they could participate in activities with smartphones. And by rolling out safety management software on smartphones, they're able to log hazards, log incidents, and be involved within it. And that improves the culture. If someone can't participate and all they're hearing is you've got to work more safely, then there's less ownership and less chance that they will participate or be able to participate. So it certainly does improve the culture. Shared responsibility. One of the things that we find is in a lot of organisations is people who are employed as the safety manager or the safety coordinator or consultant are considered, they're the person who looks after safety. And what happens is if you don't roll these tools out to more people, they'll just say, well, I can't participate, safety is your problem, that's why you're employed, and then they get on with their own job and don't consider that safety is actually part of their own job, and invariably you don't get the typical buy-in that you require. Promoting and reporting culture. So one of the things that if you've got a mobile phone with you or a mobile device with you and you see a hazard while you're out in the field, even with or without internet connectivity, you're far more likely to report it. So I gave the example recently of a teacher on a school bus driving on a school excursion, and the bus driver overtook unsafely and only narrowly avoided an accident. So there's obviously a significant hazard there that could cause significant loss of life. Now, if the teacher waited till they got back to school 8 hours later, they may have got distracted. They may have forgotten to actually report this information, and the hazard doesn't get reported. The same sort of thing with incidents. If it happens out in the field and you can't get back to a computer until much later, then it just doesn't get reported. So what it does is they've got the phone, they've got a very simple tool to be able to say, I'm logging a hazard, or I'm logging an incident, or I'm recording an inspection or an audit. So they're reporting, you're getting more reports in, which is what you want. So initially your stats might actually look worse because it looks like you're having more incidents and you've got more hazards. But what's actually happening is you're just getting better data, you're getting better information that you can then really see what's actually going on. The other aspect of improving safety culture is driving accountability. So when you drive accountability, what you can do is you can basically have actions and various things that people have to do when they're involved. So if they've been assigned an inspection or an audit, or they've been assigned an action to do something within a system, you can report on that information, and you can basically say, well, safety is a part of your role. You need to be basic. We can now hold you to account because we have the information to show whether you've done your actions, whether you've been doing what it is that you need to be doing. Okay, so to improve the safety culture, what you need is convenient tools. So getting back to, you don't want to have to go back to the office 8 hours after the incident or you've noticed the hazard. You want it to be convenient. And mobile tools are in your pocket, so it's very, very easy to access. It needs to be easy to report. So you can't have long forms of incidents, hazards, and other things like observations. Otherwise, people won't do it. It just gets too hard, especially on a mobile device, because you don't have a full-size keyboard. It is not quite as easy to type. So when you're using these tools, to make it, you've got to make it convenient and you've got to make it easy. If it's easy, they'll go, okay, it's easy. I can record it. I can take a photograph, and then I can just submit it, and then it's reported into the system. It'll also help you with safety performance. You'll get better data integrity with a lot of forms that people have used historically. There's a lot of text fields, or a lot of, if it's on paper or spreadsheet, they're just typing information, which is very, very difficult to report against. So if someone reports left hand and someone else reports hand, it's very hard to try to look at hand injuries overall, as an example. So when you're reporting, you've got drop-down lists and radio buttons, either on mobile devices or on browsers, you get a lot better data integrity. One of the things that you can do is measure what you're doing, and people, when you measure what you do, you can then, once you've got a reporting solution in place, you can then improve. So I liken it to an example of a set of weight scales. If you want to lose weight and you don't really know how much you actually weigh, and you don't know whether you're actually gaining or losing weight, there's no way you can improve. There's no way you can meet that target of reducing weight. And the same applies here. So it allows, mobile devices allow you to measure better, and then once you've got that information, you can then improve because you know where you are. The other aspect is sustainable processes. And by the way, I'm going to get onto some live demos in a little while as well. So I'll actually go through and demonstrate some of the things that I'm showing talking about on the screen here. Basically, sustainable processes are important. And as I mentioned before, I've been doing this for about 20 years and 13 years in my current role. And one of the things that makes a difference for me personally is implementing software into a company and seeing that software being used over many, many years, no matter whether the person's staying in the role or moving on to different roles. One of the things that concerns me greatly in the past is seeing organisations put in processes, and then when a person leaves, then putting in new processes and throwing out the old because they're not bedded down, they're not implemented effectively. When you implement processes, you might want to tweak them somewhat as people change roles, but typically the processes should stay. And what that to me means making a difference. And what it also allows organisations to do is to also make a difference as well, because you're putting in sustainable processes, you're measuring, you're now, rather than running around being the person that specifically you're the one who manages or does everything for safety, you're now putting processes in place that allow you to make a difference long term. So long time after you've either retired or moved on to other organisations, the organisation will still continue to operate safely. One of the things that slides, this is a rather telling slide, and it dates right back to the 1970s, and some of this is related to safety management software, and some of it's just great, better systems. But in the mining industries, or the mining industry I should say, safety has improved dramatically. Now, what is interesting of note is safety management software was really pioneered in the mining industries because originally safety management software was very, very expensive. We didn't have cloud-based type software available, and the only way to be able to implement it was through having a lot of money and implementing it in the mining system, but mining companies. But what you'll notice is that the fatality injury incident rate has dramatically dropped in the mining industry over a significant period of time, and I believe that a certain percentage of that will be due to implementing effective systems and using safety management software to effectively do that. And obviously, less paperwork. One of the organisations that we went into in the last year was spending in the order of paperwork compliance costs, and this is a big multi-billion-dollar project. They were spending something in the order of $30,000 a month. Someone told me that it was a week, but I'm not sure that it was a week or a month. In fact, they did tell me that it was a week, and I thought that can't be true. It has to be a month. So it's either a month or a week, but whichever way you look at it, the compliance costs were absolutely massive. The amount of paperwork and the issues that they had there were quite substantial. What they were doing, and this gets back to the mobile side of things as well, what they're doing is they're going out in the field, they're doing inspections, they're putting it in paper, or observations for that matter. So they're putting in observations or inspections or a variety of other things. They're putting it in paper, and then they're getting someone else to transpose it into a computer system or into an Excel spreadsheet, and then they're taking it somewhere else and getting it reported into graphs that people and turning it into useful information that they could use. Now what they do as an alternative is they log the information, and they do it on a mobile device or a laptop, but usually a mobile device, and there's no double handling. Now the other problem with paperwork, it wasn't actually so much the double handling that was the issue, it was the actual loss of data. So what was happening is there was these great big piles of paper being put in. Information was either being incorrectly transposed or just lost, and there was a very, very large percentage of information just purely lost. So things just didn't get entered into the system, and they weren't able to do anything useful. One of the aspects of any good solution as far as safety management software goes is have a start to finish or an end-to-end process. So looking at this process here, I should be able to log an incident or a hazard or other information using a mobile device. Once I've done that, so let's say I'll go back to that example in the field before, where I was the classroom teacher, the driver was driving dangerously. I've logged the incident. It should automatically, as soon as I'm online, and most people are online these days through mobile networks, it should automatically notify someone that something has happened or that there is a dangerous situation. So email notifications or SMS alerts. A process should then ensure, now if it's a hazard, it may not be an investigation, it might be an analysis of that hazard, but if it's an incident, it may be an investigation. So in that particular example of that school bus, someone at the school has seen it logged, has seen maybe a picture or a video of what's gone on, and at that stage they may decide to take action straight away. So they may just pick up the phone, call the bus company and say, look, that driver needs to be replaced. We don't want that. Can you mobile phone him and ensure that he's off the road? Hopefully, of course, answering via a Bluetooth device. But basically, an end-to-end or a start-to-finish process simply means that you can start on a mobile device. You shouldn't have to do things like get something on your mobile phone and then get a PDF file and then export it somewhere and create spreadsheets and create graphs. You should be able to say, well, I've logged some information, I've inputted information, I've done some analysis or investigation work, it's notified people, and then I should have a report at the very end that gives me the dashboard information. Okay, so with mobile safety management, what are some of the things that I can do and should do with mobile devices. One of the things is dashboards. I should be able to see how effectively I'm performing. With mobile safety management, I should have some apps that allow me to work online and offline. I should be one of the most useful features specifically that's done day in, day out is to try to improve your lead indicators, and that's through your inspections and your audits. Again, go out into the field, have a mobile device, record the information and then submit, and then it's in the system. So you're not double handling, and it's a lot simpler to do it, and you've also got photographic evidence as required. If I'm out in the field, I should also be able to I should be able to look at information. So if there's a safe work procedure for something that I'm about to do, hopefully I should be able to see that information on the mobile device. So if I need to see a policy or a procedure or read any information about the job I'm about to be doing, I should have a list of documents available to do that. I should be able to log incidents, hazards, actions, observations easily. Okay, so this brings me very, very closely to the first demonstration part of the system. What I'm going to be doing in a moment is a demonstration with my mobile device. The first one that I'm looking at is actually something called QR codes. With QR codes, you can use QR codes, which are basically barcodes. When you go to the supermarket, you have a barcode on an item, and that's what gets scanned. With a QR code, it can store additional information inside the QR code. So with QR codes, you can create QR codes, you can stick them onto things or even engrave them onto equipment. And you should be able to take a mobile phone, and with a mobile phone, you should be able to then see information. So if you've got your fire extinguishers around the building, you should be able to scan a fire extinguisher, and you should be able to then see whether it's past its test date or any other information. You should be able to look at a piece of equipment and potentially look at safe operating procedures relating to that piece of equipment. Now, the other option is you should be able to look at an employee or a contractor who should have a QR code on their badge, and you should be able to determine whether they are who they are and whether they've done the training that they're meant to have done. So if a person hasn't done the training that they're meant to have done, then you know that that they shouldn't go on site. So you should know immediately whether they've done the induction. So you can see a QR code on the screen here. I'm going to attempt to actually show my screen on my phone on the screen. Just bear with me for a moment. Okay, so you can see at the moment I've actually got my phone. It's actually, I've got to move my phone out of the way, in fact. So let's just move that over there. What I'm going to do is I've got a QR code on the screen. I've just scanned the code. I'm pressing the open button, and now this is the QR code of a person within the organisation. So what it's done is it's loaded the details of that person. So it happens to be Kim. She's an employee. Now, I want to see, is that person who she says she is? So I can look at the person and see the picture. I can then see, okay, well, I want to know what training courses that this person's completed. So I can click on training courses. I can say, okay, well, I can see that she's done the basic computer usage and she's got a driver's license. Okay, but what training courses are outstanding? What hasn't she done? So I can see first aid, hazardous chemicals, Excel, Word, the Warner Glen induction. Okay, we can see straight away that that's outstanding. She hasn't actually done the induction course. So what that means is I'm not comfortable with her coming on site. So straight away I can say, no, you're not coming on site. You can go do the induction course, and then she can be scanned again, and then just make sure that the details are actually correct. So very, very easy to implement QR codes. They're very, very simple, and it's a very, very effective way of checking pieces of equipment, checking people, checking information about those things. So the example that I gave, this person can't come to site, hasn't done the appropriate items. I'm now just trying to get rid of my phone off the screen. Okay, so that's just one of the live demonstrations I'm doing today. Basically, that's essentially allowing me to capture information via QR code. In that particular case, I captured it off the screen. Obviously, you capture it off an ID pass, or some people I know etch or engrave QR codes into pieces of equipment, so there's no chance of them falling off. Okay, so and I've just got an example in the presentation of a live video feed, which I'll go past. Excuse me. One of the things that you should be able to do is log and view incidents, hazards, actions within a system. So you should be able to go through and log these things, and it gets back to that end-to-end process. So you've logged an incident or identified a hazard, it then notifies the appropriate people. So I'm going to go through an example, again an interactive demo. Again, these things don't always go to plan because I'm using technology to try to broadcast my mobile device to my screen. But hopefully this will all work nicely. So just bear with me while I attempt to do that. Okay, so in the example that we're talking about before, you should be able to log things like actions, incidents, hazards, inspections, safety observations, and a variety of other things. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to log an incident, and apparently I've had a hand injury. So that's the example that I'll be going through today. Now, I click on the item, it logs onto the system, okay, and then once it's logged onto the system, I should be able to enter that information. Now, this should work whether I'm actually did a restart. It should actually work whether I'm online or offline. So I should be able to go out into the field, be without internet access, out in the middle of nowhere, and once I should be able to log that information, enter the details, take the pictures, and then once I've done that, I should be able to have that information just sent automatically. So I'm choosing log new, and I'm choosing logging an incident in this particular case. And what it's basically doing is it's now loading up a variety of information there. So I've got a hierarchy which just tells me what site and what location that I'm at. I should be able to choose those things. I should be able to say the involved person, so I'm choosing the involved person as Nikki. Okay, so I've got some dates there. I should be able to change those dates. So in this particular case, I've got a brief description. So hurt hand with, and thank goodness for autocorrect is fixing those different things. So what is it as an injury, but it could have been something else. So I could have chosen a different type of injury, so it might have been a near miss or something like that, but I'll just leave it as injury for the moment. Just scrolling further down, so it wants some further details, so I'll type in chopping, food, knife slipped, and cut, hand, superficial injury. And so forth. So you type in the basic details. Okay, so what immediate controls? Okay, so I've stopped the bleeding, so Band-Aid will do for the moment. In this case, was the control might be to put guarding on the piece of on the knife or on the area, but I'm just going to just put in let's put in guarding for the moment. Again, at this particular stage, I might want to then select a supervisor. So the supervisor is the person that's going to actually do the investigation. So I've selected I've selected the appropriate person, and once I've done that, I might want to take a photograph. So let's, I don't have a cut finger, but let's pretend I did, so, or a thumb, let's say. So the picture comes up. I can say, yeah, that's the cut on my thumb. Take the photograph, use the photograph. Now that photograph will now be available as part of the incident report. Now if I needed to take more photographs, so, obviously I could take more photographs. So at this point, hopefully I've completed all the information to the appropriate standard. I hit the submit button, and once I've hit the submit button, what will occur is that information should now get automatically notified to the appropriate person, who can then take action and start the investigation. So it gets back to the end-to-end process. I've logged the incident, something is now going to happen. It's not waiting for me to export this to Excel or do something else. It's happening right now. Someone is doing an investigation, and also management, or in fact anybody, should be able to view this information on the dashboard. So they should be able to see exactly what's going on at any one particular time. So again, if you can measure, then you can produce reports, and then those reports can then tell you what's going on, and you can take effective measure. If we're seeing 10 hand injuries from cutting of knives, we know that we're doing something wrong, and we stop what we're doing, we do something differently. And obviously through being able to measure that and display it on dashboards through that end-to-end process is going to be a far more effective way of seeing what's going on in real time. Okay, so just getting rid of my phone for a moment and just jumping back to the presentation.
Just before you do go on, Adrian, a question has come through. The app looks really good. What sort of back-end setup and support is needed to get the benefits, or is the entire thing managed through the app?
You need a back-end system to be able to do it effectively. So you do need to have essentially a combination of an app and a cloud-based solution. There are solutions out there that are just purely app-based, but they don't provide that end-to-end solution because they don't typically allow you to have the more comprehensive reporting. Looking at a dashboard on a mobile phone is a lot less effective than looking at a dashboard on a big screen like we're looking at today. So to work with it effectively, there are solutions out there which allow you to log incidents, but typically they're not end-to-end. In many cases on the mobile side of things, you'll find there's lots of apps on the web. They might allow you to log something, but they typically won't allow you to then automatically have the rest of those end-to-end processes occurring. So typically you need some safety management software that has mobile capability built into it as part of the overall solution. So it's not the only part of the solution, it's a significant part of the solution. And in some cases, mobile's very frustrating because, as you saw, I was trying to type in information there. If I had to write a 5-page witness statement, I'd be very, very frustrated doing that on a mobile device. So the reality is you try to keep the forms short, and then you have a safety management software in the background with back-end servers that allow you to do things via a web browser or other methods. Okay, moving to, hopefully that's answered the question. If not, feel free to post another one, and I'm more than happy to answer questions as we go. Okay, so one of the things that you can do to prevent incidents occurring in the first place is to put in audits and inspections. Now, to be able to do that, you should be able to create custom inspections and templated inspections, if you like. So you have an inspection that you do every week, every month, every quarter, every year, whatever it might be. You have a series of inspections. What you want to be able to do is you want to be able to, first of all, create those inspections. So with all the questions that you want to put in there. And you should be able to create a template that mimics what you do already on paper. So you might be able to say something safe or unsafe, or it's got a or it's, the answer to a question might be yes or no, and so forth. Secondly, you should have these inspections and or audits scheduled on a regular basis. So what you should be able to do there is people should be reminded that they've got an inspection or an audit that they need to do, and then they should be able to pop out their mobile device or their web browser and then perform that inspection. They should be able to conduct the inspection once it's been scheduled. So if it's weekly, it should automatically come up on their device. They should be able to look at it, take photos, and then once you've logged this information on the mobile device, it should synchronise with the safety management software in the back end. So you should then be able to also generate the actions that are required. So remember, you can do all of these things, but if you don't create actions and assign them to people, then nothing actually gets done, and follow up on those actions as well and hold people to account. So whether it's an investigation for an incident or whether it's doing an inspection, the whole purpose is to basically find out what it is you should be doing to prevent these things. So again, with an inspection, you should be able to create your own questions or your templates. You should schedule them. You should then be able to conduct them, take photographs, and then synchronise. And then be able to, if you take that one step further, you should then be able to look at that on your dashboard and see how many inspections and audits you've been doing, and also see what are, potentially what are some of the issues coming out of those inspections and audits. So you should be able to look for trends in your dashboard. Okay, so I'm going to take us over to another live demo, all going well, of course. What I'm going to do here is, again, just load up my screen. Okay, so there can obviously be a variety of sorts of things that you can log. I'm going to, in this case, log an inspection. Okay, so there's just a variety of different ones in there. I'm, in this particular case, going to choose the ASNZ 4801. Okay, so I should now be able to scroll through this. You can see I'm not going to complete this, by the way, because it's probably going to take more than the hour it is that I'm allocated to actually do the session today. But what you'll notice is that I can again put in the accountable person, so I can choose a person's name from the list. I can set there's a reminder that's in here. If I'm not going to complete it straight away, I can set reminders for it to remind me at a later stage. And then I should have sections within the audit. So if in this particular case here, you can see that there are questions that pop up, and I should be able to answer yes or no to the questions. And you can see that it can also be nicely color coded, so you can see immediately whether something is acceptable or not. Now, based on this, and I won't go through the whole thing, but obviously I could go through, take photos like I did with the incident one, and then submit. One of the things that should also do that I didn't mention on the previous slide is it should also score how well you've gone. So you've got a number that you can compare how well you've achieved this month to last month, or from this audit to last audit. So you might have a score of, say, 5 if you answer yes, or 0 if you answer no, and if you answer not applicable, then it shouldn't actually go towards the score at all. So at the end of the day, you can then, again, look at this information on the dashboard, and you should be able to look at a management level, how are we going with our inspections and audits? So it's not just a matter of us doing them and creating the actions, but what are the sorts of things that are we finding, and are we improving? So again, it gets back to that measuring and being able to effectively collect information through technologies like mobile devices, and then being able to have that end-to-end process where you've recorded it. That once you've recorded it, you might do some more on the website, but you should automatically see it on the dashboard to see what's going on. Okay, I'm not going to go through this entire list of questions. You can see there's section after section. So if I click on that section, there's more questions. So these questions could have been safe, unsafe, good, poor, bad, you know, whatever answers you wanted on these, and each question should be able to be weighted. Okay, so I'm going to just get rid of my screen for a moment and turn off mirroring. One of the interesting ones I did a few months ago is I was with a company, and they were doing these things called yellow cards. They're basically the equivalent of an observation. So essentially the analogy was like a yellow card in soccer. You give someone a yellow card when they've done something wrong or where they've observed something that's of concern. So one of the nice things was I was able to build, and using the inspection form, I could actually build their questions into the form. And within 5 minutes, I was able to say, okay, well, that's the yellow card inspection. Well, it was an audit, I suppose, but there's the yellow card observation. You can now use that on your mobile device and deploy it to whoever. And the biggest issue that they had was, this particular company, was that they were having people do them on pieces of paper. And again, those pieces of paper were getting lost. They were transposing them onto spreadsheets and then doing statistics, but the only useful information they were getting out of that particular exercise was to measure how many people had done. So you could measure that, yes, Joe Bloggs did the 5 yellow cards that he was meant to do this month, but they weren't getting any analytical information out of it. They weren't getting anything useful. Once they implemented the process, they were then able to answer, well, how many negative observations did we have? How many positive observations did we have? What types? So they were dividing them into different types and so forth, or in this case, yellow cards. So we're missing an E on that, on configure, or we've learned a new way of spelling it. So dashboards, I've talked about dashboards to some degree, but configure, analyze and share. So basically you should be able to configure a dashboard to show the information that you want to record, to be able to compare about how well you did last year, to be able to compare how well you're doing against your overall company's performance, to be able to see, okay, we are having lots of hand injuries or back injuries. What sorts of programs do we need to put in place? Do we need to implement a manual handling program because we're having back injuries? If we're not measuring it, if we're not getting, there's 2 aspects to a system that I see as critical. One is getting information in, and one of the major things that we've talked about today is the mobile side of things. Mobile is just fantastic for getting information into the system. Dashboards and reports are fantastic at getting information out of the system. They're the 2 really critical things with a good system. If you get those things right, you can then record lots of information that's relevant and useful and has good integrity. You're not recording rubbish in, rubbish out. You're getting good information in, and you're then able to act on that through live dashboards. So that dashboard should show you things like data, like tables, maps, charts, key performance indicators. So we're not just talking about lag indicators of how many people we've injured. We're talking about how many observations have we done to prevent, how many observations have we done? How many audits and inspections have we done? Are we putting in programs in place? How many actions have we completed to be able to prevent incidents? And once you've got that information, you can then make better decisions. So it gets back to, what are we going to do? How are we going to spend our resources to improve what we're doing? So you've got finite resources. If you don't spend them in the right way, you're not going to be as effective as you could be. So again, getting that information in, getting a large amount of information in, and again, if you're seeing lots of hazards being logged, lots more incidents being logged, it doesn't mean your safety performance is going south. It means that you've got a better reporting culture and you're going to be able to make better decisions at the end of the day. In the end, it'll balance out a little bit, but a lot of companies, when they implement a system, they get concerned immediately because they've all of a sudden got all this data and they're thinking they're having more incidents, but in reality, they're just reporting them and they're being able to then make better decisions based on those. Okay, other things within safety management software, managing your training records. I touched on that a little while ago. One of the things that that example of that company that didn't have their training records up to date, the system through an end-to-end process should have reminded them 30 days prior to let them know. Contractor management. A lot of companies are very, very good at recording their workers' compensation details, their insurances when they employ a contractor, but they're very, very bad in general at following it up. So when those insurances expire, the company is then exposed. Your equipment registers, being able to look at equipment, scan it, see whether it's up to date. Online learning, being able to put programs in place and allow people to learn more effectively online through modern technologies like WorkSafe has been doing with these webinars, getting out to more people more effectively. Manage your injuries, make sure that you've got your return to work programs in place, and managing all the information that goes when you do have an injury, managing all that information effectively. Observations and various different things like job hazard analyses. Many of these things can be done using aspects of mobile technology. Very quickly, selecting software. There's lots of good solutions out there. I look at things like what sorts of service do you get afterwards. There's also a lot of systems that come online. It's very easy for someone to write a solution and then get an employer programmer to put something out there. So it's more than just the technical side. It's the service, the training and the support. Implementation should typically be cloud-based and hosted, and they should have, it's not included on this slide, but they should have good mobile offerings. There should be reference sites that should be used with any software that you look at. One of the things that I don't like to see is people just put together a big spreadsheet, and procurement departments are very often do this. They'll put a 300 line spreadsheet together, then they'll just weight the answers. And looking at the software, evaluating it, doing these other things often comes second, and quite often they'll make poor decisions because all they're doing is relying on a weighted questionnaire as opposed to evaluating, looking at references, going out, visiting the companies that are using the various different software, seeing how it works in practice, seeing what the negatives are, because some software will, for example, you might find that the software is very good in some instances, but you then find that you need 3 people to administer it. So you've made time savings on producing reports, but then you spend the rest of your time, redirecting incident reports, deleting things, changing roles, and so forth. And the final point on this slide is good software should be established. It should have been used for a long period of time, and the bugs should be hopefully ironed out. Again, mobile configured was one of the things that I obviously talked about. Modular. So for example, I've talked about a lot of different systems that can be part of safety management software, but you might already have a very effective training management module or system. You might have a very effective contractor management system. Some systems will force you to take the whole thing, and then you're buying things that you don't actually need because you've already got effective things in place. So when you've got modular software, you can say, well, I've already got a good contractor management software module, but we're not doing training management well, or vice versa. The other thing in selecting software is make sure that it's reputable, is used in industry and used by professionals. Okay, I've finished with roughly 10 minutes to spare, which was the intention, to answer any questions that might have popped up throughout the presentation today, or give people to ask questions at this point.
All right, thank you very much, Adrian, for your presentation this morning using software technology and mobile apps for WHS management. As Adrian mentioned, now is the time for you to submit any questions that you may have for Adrian, so please do submit those questions through the question pane in the attendee control panel. Question, Adrian, can it interface with other electronic systems such as patient care systems?
Yes, In fact, that's a really good question. One of the key aspects, and one of the things that should have probably been on in this presentation on those last slides with selecting, is integration. Integration is really important. So typically these days systems don't work in isolation. You need systems that can actually work with other systems. So an example of a common integration that I see is quite often you have your people information in a HR system, or maybe in this case in a patient care system. You don't want to have to then enter that information again in another system that comes online, and then again in another system that comes online. You end up with a lot of duplication of data and a lot of extra effort to do that. So in answer to that question, yes, most software packages can integrate. A big part of when we implement our software, we specifically look at integration as a key component of any business requirements process. So there's a few integration points, your people data. So if someone enters the organisation, you don't want to have to enter that. That person should automatically be available on the system. If someone leaves the organisation, you want it to automatically remove that person from the system, but keep the existing data. So if they've had an incident, of course, or have other information in there, you want to obviously keep that, but you may want to just archive certain aspects of it. And if their details change, they might have moved departments, divisions, or had a name change, for example, you want that to be updated as well. But there's other things that you might want to integrate with too. So for example, you might have your training records in another system, and you might want to use the system to produce the management reports or the dashboards, so you can integrate with those sorts of things. You might want to integrate with your work hour information to produce your frequency rate data. So you might be recording timesheets somewhere else, and you might want that data pushed across. So in answer, a very long answer to that question, the answer is yes, but and a key aspect to implementing software, particularly in a larger organisation, it doesn't so much apply to small organisations, but particularly for your larger organisations, you do want to be able to, part of a key component and evaluation criteria is you do want it to integrate with whatever you need it to integrate with. Actually one other thing in there is that you also potentially, and again this will be for larger organisations as a general rule, you also want it to be potentially integrated with your network, so you don't have to have an extra username and password. So when you start the software, you just want it to start. You don't want to have to then manage another username and password. But there are easy ways around that if you have to do that, or if you can't integrate with your Active Directory or your network.
Thank you very much, Adrian. And there's still time to submit any questions that you do have. While those questions are coming through, I'll just remind everyone that we do have other webinars, my apologies, running this week during WorkSafe Tasmania month. There is a public holiday here in Hobart. On Thursday there is a webinar still running, so if anyone hasn't had a look at the program to see what else we do have happening this week, please do. We're also running live feed sessions at the University of Tasmania all of today, so if you haven't registered to participate in those live panel discussions, if you head to the the university's website, just search for their live stream page and hook in from your computer to participate in those sessions that we are running. And again, WorkSafe Month, sorry, I have a cough. WorkSafe Month finishes on the 30th of October this year. So again, head to the WorkSafe Tas site to see what else we are running up until next Friday. So with no additional questions coming through, Adrian, I may begin to wrap up. So as I said at the start, we do appreciate you staying on your computers for a few moments once the webinar does shut down. Please do provide us with your feedback and comments about this morning's webinar. Also, please do give us your feedback about your webinar experience. It will certainly assist us when we do put together the WorkSafe Tasmania Month program again next year as well. And do head to the WorkSafe Tasmania website to have a look at other events and activities that we do have running during WorkSafe Month until next Friday. So on behalf of WorkSafe Tasmania and our presenter today, Adrian Meneses from MyOsh Safety Management Software, we thank him for presenting his webinar using software technology and mobile apps for WHS management. And we also thank you for joining us today, and hope that you have a great, safe and healthy rest of the day. Thank you, Adrian, and thank you, everyone.